Well, good day to you. It is December the 3rd. I hope you are having a fantastic day wherever you happen to be. My name is Gary Willing, and as always, I want to welcome you to Search for Signs. And as I always like to do, just kind of point out to those people who are totally new to this information, if you want to know more about who and what Maitreya is, you want to know more about his priorities, if you want to see if there's any truth to this after listening to a video or two, the best thing to do is to read more about it for yourself. I've included links that take you to websites that talk about this information in some way. So all you have to do is just check out whichever one interests you and go to that site. All the information on there is free. You don't have to give out any personal information to read some of this stuff for yourself. And then you have a better idea if it's true for you. Okay, so hopefully you'll do it at some point. Now, if you have heard these videos before and you haven't done it already, hopefully you'll do it at some point for yourself too. Now, if you want to come back and join the discussion, post comments, post your questions in the comments section, or if you want, email me at searchforsigns@mail.com. All right, now let's get on into it. I do want to thank Tara321 for your comment since the last time I put a video up. I want to talk about this. I was really excited to hear this, to read this that you put down, because it gives us something to really talk about. It's very important. One is about UFOs, and the other one's about the environment. So let's talk about it. Now, you said, I heard Tom DeLonge, maybe that's how you pronounce it. I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this person's name. UFO disclosure guy say something about the triangular stranglehold on a couple of podcasts. His military advisors worry about this and try not to upset it. Funny, he said it was USA, Russia, and the others. The others are non-human intelligence. I also heard his associate Jim Saravan, CIA, say he was into esoteric knowledge and advised people to read Blavatsky's work and Wilhelm Reich. Now, real quick, why anybody would advise somebody to read Blavatsky I have no clue why they would ever do that. Not saying that what she said wasn't true, because it was a seminal work, really, because it was the first time ever that somebody came out and started talking about these masters of wisdom that had been hidden away for eons upon eons. So it was necessary job that she had. She was asked by the masters personally to do it, and she did a wonderful job with it, but I don't understand what she's saying, what she wrote down. So, you probably would understand it better than me, because you probably have a better grasp of this information than I do. But I would recommend reading more Benjamin Creme's books, because they talk about Blavatsky, and he explains it in such a way that somebody as dumb as me can figure it out. So that's why I enjoy his books probably more than Blavatsky's book. But anyway, so this guy recommended Blavatsky and Wilhelm Reich, and that's who I wanted to talk about, was Wilhelm Reich in relation to the UFOs. Now, Wilhelm Reich, historically, is not very well known. He was actually a psychoanalyst that was a contemporary of Sigmund Freud. So I guess as a hobby, he was also a scientist. And he stumbled across probably one of the most astounding discoveries of the 20th century. He discovered what he called the orgon. He saw it as an energy field around all things. But what he stumbled across was the discovery of the lowest level of what's called the etheric planes. This is what the masters call it. Okay, so according to the masters, well, actually, let me go back. According to scientists, if you asked any scientist, what are the states of matter, right? They would say solid, liquid, and gas. That was it, 3. Well, this is only part of it. According to the masters, there are actually 7 levels of physicality, 4 above gas, that most scientists don't know about. This gentleman, Wilhelm Reich, happened to discover it scientifically and proved that it existed. Why nobody else followed up on the work and really elaborated on it to where we all understand it now is beyond me, but eventually we will. But even though he's not really well known for what he discovered, I do think that when it does finally come out that he was the one that discovered the orgon, it's going to reshape and rethink. It's going to reshape how we all think about the physical universe. So his discovery, I would put up there with Newton's theory of gravity, Einstein's theory of relativity, the invention of the light bulb, or whatever you want to say. It will be up there with those discoveries that people talk about today. But right now, nobody's talking about this. But quite extraordinary thing. Now, what does this have to do with UFOs, and what does this have to do with the environment? Okay, so according to the masters, these 4 levels of etheric, okay, are on the physical plane. They're not a different dimension. They're not even really a different plane of existence. They're just different levels of physicality. And this is where the Space Brothers who occupy the UFOs, this is where they live. As it says in the Bible, this is where they live and move and have their being, is on the etheric planes. We don't see the etheric planes because we don't have etheric vision. But if we did, and some people do, they would see all sorts of life that most people wouldn't see, because there's all sorts of life on the etheric planes, including the Space Brothers. So the spaceships that they have, these so-called UFOs, when they're flying around in our atmosphere, we don't see them until they want to lower their vibration down so we can see them. Then we see them for the time that we see them, and then they looks like they go into a different dimension, but all they do is raise their vibration rate up. And according to Ben, they could still be right there, right in front of the viewer, just the viewer is totally blind to the fact that they're there. And if you were to go to any one of the planets that this humanity is on, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Neptune, Mercury, you would see nothing but a dead, lifeless planet, unless you had etheric planes. And then you would see that on, let's say, Mars, there are more people living on Mars than there are on this planet, according to the masters. There's 9 billion people living on Mars, compared to our, 7.5, whatever it is now? I don't know. I can't even keep track of how many people are living on our planet, but there's more people on that planet. And Mars, physically, in reference to Earth, is much smaller. Now, Ben used to say some things sarcastically and used to say things that seemed like it was sarcasm, but if you really looked at it, he was just saying it in a way that it just was kind of funny. But he said this one thing when he was talking about Space Brothers from Mars. He said the reason why they're small, and they've always been viewed as small, even though they look like everyday people, because he had met a few of them, but the reason why they were small is because there's so many people living on a much smaller planet. And they come here to our planet, and they look like little short people. But they're normal size, I guess. But anywho, that's neither here nor there. But anyway, so these spaceships are coming from these other planets. They're not coming from another solar system, another galaxy, or another dimension. They're coming from our closest planets in our solar system, but they're on the etheric planes. And then when they want to be seen, they lower their vibration down. We see them, and then when they stop wanting to be seen, they simply raise their vibration back up, and then we don't see them anymore. Where Willem Reich's discovery fits into the environment. Okay, so this is an important thing to think about when it comes to pollution. Okay, so right now, you talk to any environmentalist, any environmental activist, it's all about climate change. That's the talk. That's the speak about what they're talking about, right? It is a very important issue because, according to the masters, it's a very dangerous problem, the raising of the temperature of our planet due to greenhouse gases. Now, both sides are correct and both sides are incorrect when they say that it's man-made. The masters don't say it's not. They don't say it's all man-made, and they don't say it's not all man-made. What they say is it's a blending. There's a percentage of things that humanity is responsible for doing, and then there's also a percentage of the reason why the Earth's temperature is increasing due to natural causes. It's about 80-20 from what they say. 80% man-made, 20% natural causes. So they're both right. It's just with all the people living on this planet, using up all the resources that we're using, creating all the pollution, the greenhouse gases that we're doing, it's very destructive to the environment. If we don't solve that problem, it will be permanently disastrous for this planet. So that's how they are right in the danger of it. Now, here's where the etheric comes into play. According to Maitreya and these masters, as dangerous as greenhouse gases are, that pollution pales in comparison to nuclear radiation. Now you might say, what does that have to do with anything? Well, nuclear radiation from our scientists' and politicians' point of view, is totally safe and they've contained it. It's a lie. That is not the case at all. Not only is it not containable, but it's not safe. And the pollution goes right through the lead, right through the concrete, and right out up into the atmosphere. And our Geiger counters cannot measure this very, very fine pollution because it's on the etheric planes. Because there's more to physicality than our scientists know about. So if they put this Geiger counter right up next to a nuclear reactor, it's not registering anything because our measurements are very crude, but it's going right out into the upper atmosphere because it's so light and fine. And according to the masters, every droplet of rain that falls from the sky is saturated with nuclear radiation. Where we live, our indoor environments, whether it's a house or an apartment or whatever, is saturated with nuclear radiation that we ingest in our food, in our water. We breathe it in and out every single moment of every single day. And it's making humanity sick. It's killing humanity off. Maitreya, when he's out known for who he is, one of the first things that he's going to advocate very strongly is that we need, as a humanity, shut down all our nuclear reactors right now. Now, it's not going to be quite as traumatic as you might think because we can very easily, with the same reactors, do a cold fusion versus a very hot and dangerous fission process. So and we already have the technology to do this according to the masters. So this will be a stage before we actually are trusted with what the masters call the technology of light, which is what these UFOs run on and what these civilizations on these other planets use to power their cities. Eventually, these Space Brothers will give us the same technology that they use, but only when they can truly trust that we're peaceful and we've put war behind us forever, that they'll be able to trust us with this technology of light. But up until that point, we can use a cold fusion process, use the same equipment that we're using for the fission process. It's just a tad bit more expensive, less profitable for these power companies. But it would be totally clean and not pollute the environment in the way that they're doing. These UFOs are here in the main because they are here to clean up the atmosphere until we realize that we can't do this anymore. They're working moment to moment, day in and day out. I can't imagine them getting paid anything to do this, so it's a service that they're providing for humanity, and we owe them a tremendous karmic debt, according to the masters, for their work. And eventually we'll have to pay off that debt, is what Ben said. But and I don't know what that entails, but anyway, I'm thankful that they're doing it now, because if it wasn't for the work and activity of the Space Brothers helping to clean up the environment, we would be nearly all dead, from what they say. Now, for those of us who follow UFO activity, watch the History Channel or Nat Geo or whatever when they have, little TV shows about UFOs and so forth, you'll see from time to time where they talk about how they're seen quite a bit around nuclear naval vessels, nuclear power plants, nuclear missile silos, and so forth. And they always have this kind of paranoid perspective on what they're doing as assessing our technology. Well, they're not assessing our technology. They already know how crude our technology is. What they're doing is they're there around those areas because they're cleaning up the nuclear radiation that it's causing. And that's, I think, evidence of what George Adamski was saying was true and what Benjamin Creme was saying is true about these Space Brothers and their work and activity. But anybody who puts out a book or talks on a podcast or talks on TV or radio or whatever, about how harmful UFOs are to humanity, how they're eventually here to take us over, and they're creating all this fear around it, are wrong. And you don't have to take my word for it. You don't even have to believe me when I say this, but in the end, they will be proved wrong. These Space Brothers and sisters mean us no harm. They are just as harmless and just as loving and caring and full of joy as these masters are. And really, if you wanted evidence in this regard, how much evidence is coming out now more and more and more about UFOs, but yet there isn't any evidence that they're taking us over? Why? I think if they were here to take us over, they would have tried to take us over a long time ago. What are they waiting on? Well, they're not here to take us over. That's why they're not taking us over. It's all fantasy. It's all coming from our movies. It's coming from our paranoid fear. But the good news is more and more every single day, more and more evidence is coming out on videos from individuals, coming out from our own governments that UFOs are here. And nobody can really deny that they're coming out. I mean, less and less people are going, no, that's just a bunch of crazy talk. They might not know why they're here. They might not know where they come from or their purpose or whatever like this, but it's getting harder and harder to deny evidence of the fact that these UFOs are real. And I know Ben had come out and said not too long before he died that Britain was starting to declassify all the information and files that they had about UFOs because, and this is coming from the British government, they did not deem them as a national security threat anymore. And then if you look over the past 4 or 5 years, the United States is starting to do more and more of the same. And before I end the video, I just wanted to say a couple things. One, as much as I rail on the Trump administration, one of the things that I found that was quite extraordinary was the last summer before the election of 2020. There were some articles that came out that some high-level military officials were briefing members of Congress and the president himself on UFO activity. And it was just in a couple different articles. It wasn't anything, it weren't mainstream news websites, but that was about it. And then I started thinking, I was like, who in their right mind is working with the government, knowing about the bureaucracy of the government and how it works, more than likely is politically ambitious in their own way? Why would they sacrifice their career, their reputation, to bring up information that they knew wasn't true to the President of the United States or members of Congress? Do you think that somebody working in those positions in the Pentagon or in the military who just read a book or saw a video about UFOs is then going to turn around and risk their reputation and just present it to the President of the United States? Or are they going to have something to kind of back it up? And Trump didn't deny that he had met with them about it. But what he said was he didn't think that there was any truth to it. Fine, whatever. That may be true, that may not. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But he didn't deny that it happened. And my thing would be always watch what they're doing, not really listen to what they're saying. And there really has to be good, credible evidence for anyone in that position to bring that forth to the White House and even have the president agree to meet with them about it, unless they had credible evidence that UFOs were real, as far as I'm concerned. Now, the other thing I wanted to say before I ended the video was about where UFOs, I think, fit into what's going to be happening over the next few years to humanity. Now, typically, when a Christian talks about the end times, they refer to revelations, and this is why I'm bringing this up. I think there's going to be 3 revelations that will eventually bring about a very powerful spiritual revolution on this planet within humanity. The first revelation is the UFOs. It's more and more coming to light that UFOs are real, but yet we don't know why they're here. We don't know where they come from as a general rule, right? And we have an intellectual understanding that they could be coming, but we don't really have firm proof, tangible proof yet, right? It will eventually be asked of Maitreya when he's trusted to be asked these kind of questions. What's the deal with UFOs and Space Brothers? And he will tell you the same thing that Benjamin Creme and George Adamski has been saying. They are harmless, they are here to help us, and they are our brothers. But they are real. And it will be a revelation for humanity when we come to grips with the fact that we're not alone in the universe. We're not even alone in our own solar system. We have had humanity looking out for us since the dawn of time. It will be a revelation that will, I think, bring humanity together in a way that we can't possibly imagine. The other thing that will be a revelation is the understanding that we are not at the top of the spiritual chain or ladder on this planet. That there's a kingdom even above us on this planet known as the Masters of Wisdom. That they are our potential. And the potential is for our divinity to be manifested in the same way that theirs is. And that's the goal. So all the time that we ask God or we pray to God, what is the purpose of life? What's the meaning of life? The purpose of life really is so we manifest our divinity, which is the way that it should be, as these masters are doing. That's the purpose of life. It will be a revelation for all of humanity. It will bring humanity, people who feel totally disenfranchised their whole life, feel like they don't have a voice, they don't have a reason to live. It will change all that for countless millions of people. Those people who are living pretty relatively well will also understand their role in life and how they're here to not only live it just for themselves, but also to help other people. It'll be a revelation beyond what we could possibly imagine. And then the third revelation that will bring about a spiritual revolution on this planet is when a group of scientists in France discover in a lab the existence of the human soul and can prove it, and then turn around and give their scientific evidence to other scientists to prove in their labs. It will blow the whole world wide open. And then when we realize with the teachings of Maitreya how to live harmlessly, how to live as we should as one family, for governments to learn to share, and that will bring about trust amongst the nations. We'll be living in a totally transformed world in very short order once we learn to listen to what Maitreya is saying. Now, keep in mind, Maitreya is not saying who he is on TV, and there's a reason why. It's there so we listen to him and what he's saying for what he's saying, not from who we think it is that's saying it to us. So we can really listen with honesty. Do we want what he's saying or not? That's where we're at right now. But once we realize who this is, once Maitreya starts to speak with greater and greater urgency about solving some of the problems, once it starts to galvanize the hearts and minds of people all over the world, life will change dramatically from where we are today. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your comments and your questions. I look forward to more in the future and putting up videos in the future. You guys have a great rest of your weekend. Talk to you soon. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.